Angelina Oliver, and today I stand before you to discuss Thomas Jefferson and his political life. Thomas Jefferson was undoubtedly a great man, accomplished much for his country. However, he was an imperfect human being, and his political life was full of contradictions and mistakes. Now, one thing we need to know to understand Thomas Jefferson is that he was very much disagreed with the Constitution and the way it was interpreted. He believed that the Constitution was put into place so that the people could be more in control of the government than the government was in control of the people. And it was also understand that Thomas Jefferson was a Republican, and Republicans at the time believed in small, weak government, whereas the Federalists, their opponents, believed in large government that was supported by wealthy citizens, and as such gave the wealthy citizens more power as an incentive. Now, the Republicans, on the other hand, believed that power and representation should be equally distributed to all. However, this didn't line up with the country's economic plans. Thomas Jefferson, therefore, only agreed to support the Constitution after Federalist John Adams, added the Bill of Rights at the end for the representation of the people. Later on, in 1787, a Federalist opponent of Thomas Jefferson reared his head. This man was Alexander Hamilton, and he was deeply involved in the financial affairs of the new country. Now, Alexander Hamilton wanted to establish a national bank to aid in all the national debt accumulated after the Revolution. However, there was no provision or clause in the Constitution permitting this. However, Alexander Hamilton believed that he was supported by the natural and proper clause, which stated that legislation could be overruled as long as the cause was true to its name, both necessary and proper. Now, this was a very lenient take on the clause and one that Jefferson firmly disagreed with. He believed that the national bank was neither necessary nor proper, and therefore should not have been permitted. However, he was overruled when George Washington, the president at the time, ultimately agreed with Alexander Hamilton. This was a firm blow to the Republican Party, as they were seeing their new federal government overstep one of the very rules they put into place after being established. A few years later, 14 to be precise, in 1803, Thomas Jefferson became the new president. And at the time, Napoleon Bonaparte was rampaging all over Europe and needed funds to support his war efforts, so he turned to his shiny new territory in North America, the Louisiana Territory, and decided to sell it to the Americans for $22 million. Now, Thomas Jefferson was growing wary of the European conflicts and feared that the French would take advantage of the Mississippi River which connected their two territories, and that he would use it and that Napoleon would use it to infiltrate America should he choose to turn it into one of his war zones. So Thomas Jefferson sent two negotiators into France to purchase the property along the Mississippi River for $10 million. A few months later, the negotiators came back and they had purchased the entire territory, not just the river and the property alongside it, for the amazing deal of 2 cents per acre, or $15 million in all. Now, this deal may have been profitable, but it was far from legal, as there was no clause in the Constitution permitting the buying of foreign property, much less of adding that to the existing United States. As this, Jefferson attempted to get an amendment made to the Constitution before the deadline of the treaty. However, this failed. So he ultimately had to turn to the Federalists in Congress to convince them to add more federal power to override the Constitution, which was not difficult, as he only had to convince the Federalists to agree to their own position of more federal power. Now, Thomas Jefferson was extremely conflicted in his political career. He initially disagreed with the Constitution, and then used it in 1787 against Alexander Hamilton and the affair of the National Bank. 14 years later, in 1803, he stepped over the Constitution and added more federal power to the government, which was against his campaign promises about making an actually decrease in the government, and against the aim of his entire party. Now, Thomas Jefferson accomplished much for his country, although imperfect as he may have been. And he did feel that it was his proper place to purchase the Louisiana Territory and increase the size of the state. As he said, we must rely on the nation to sanctify an act done for its own great good, unquote. Therefore, Thomas Jefferson accomplished much for his country, and I respect him for that. Thank you. Are there any questions?